Weird experience. By Objective Living 6442, this took place in Japan about 10 years ago. I have no idea what it could have been, but I think it could have been a mononoke, the Japanese version of a skinwalker. Basically, it was like 4 in the morning, and I heard what sounded like a woman screaming out on the road, which is like 200 feet down from my apartment. I lived on the ninth floor. Sometimes drunk people make a ruckus, so I just ignored it and it happened again, so I took notice, and on the third scream I went out to look. Once I got out on the walkway, it sounded like it was coming from the foot of the building, and I leaned over to look. Then it sounded like it was further down to the right and just a few floors down. So I walked to the right and then I heard it from like the floor below, but way down the hall. I was starting to think it was weird that the sound kept seeming to change where it was coming from, and it seemed like the scream was happening with intervals at every 15 seconds. I walked a little further down and was getting near the stairwell. The next scream sounded really hoarse and almost like it had an animal quality to it, and it dawned on me the scream had been changing timbre, and it reached a point that I noticed it. I stopped, and then the next scream sounded like what I would describe as a fox's scream coming from a human's mouth, just one floor down in the stairwell. Then it went silent for like a minute, and I took a couple steps forward. Up till that point I only had felt concern. What if someone was in trouble and needed my help? But then I got goosebumps from my arms up my back to my head. Then immediately around the corner from me, where the stairs were, I heard two sounds at once. One, like someone was whispering really loudly, and the other, like someone was talking with gurgling sounds. I froze and started backing away, and everything went silent. Like there was no ambient traffic sounds or train sounds, and I lived next to a train station for fuck's sake. It was dead and completely silent, and I felt like something was watching me. I backed all the way back to my apartment and didn't hear anything until I got back inside. I saw one, by Human Nomad. For context, I live in northern Arizona on a rural property that borders protected native land. Last night I was alone on the property, leaving at about 8:30 p.m. to do some weekend door dashing. I was sitting on the trunk of my car, tying my shoes, when out of my periphery I started to see some movement. I tried not to move my head to look at it too quickly, because I thought it may be a fawn. I couldn't have been more wrong. It looked like a cross between Gollum from Lord of the Rings and a baby deer. It was not very big, but the way it moved was very otherworldly and disturbing. I heard what sounded like distressed bird noises moments before it appeared as well. I think it saw me notice it, because it crept back into the dark, but didn't turn its back to me. And while all this was happening, my cats and my buddy's dog all came out and surrounded me, almost like they were trying to protect me, and warned me not to mess with that thing. I pretended to ignore it and simply drove away. But I came back later in the night around midnight, and it was gone. But I still felt like I was being watched. This morning, every single one of my car's doors was found wide open by my roommate. We both suspect each other of messing with the other, because I told him what I saw last night. But I explicitly know that I shut those doors, and I don't think my roommate is lying, not from his reaction. So my concern is that was this thing targeting me? Is there something I can do to appease it? As much as it did freak me out, I picked up a sad energy from this creature, like it was a cursed child or something. I would like to help it if I can, when I came home. There was a bat sitting on the ground on the middle of the driveway. I got close slowly to confirm what it was, and at the last second flew up right at my windshield and flew away. Could it have been a random coincidence? But it was a weird moment. I've never seen a bat sit on the ground before in my life. My most recent sighting, by Altsy Wait. I live on the Navajo reservation, and a few days ago I saw my most recent shapeshifter. It happened at a well. On the res there is no water infrastructure, so most people haul water to their homes. On this day I checked on my relatives, and they needed water. I took the truck down and loaded up their buckets and jugs. For water, there is a beautiful valley with a wash going down the middle. Inside the wash is an old surface well with an old hand pump. I call it beautiful because there are lots of trees and grass surrounding the well, and it makes me feel happy and exhilarated. I unpacked the water containers and filled them. This took about 10 minutes. Afterwards, I diligently placed the jugs and buckets back into the truck. As my passenger and I got back into the cab of the truck, I noticed movement on a nearby hill. I pointed to the hill and said, "There's someone up there." As I spoke, we clearly saw an old man with a cane. When he saw us peering at him, he quickly hobbled behind a dirt outcropping. Rather than driving off, I waited. "Let's see what he does," I said as we both eyed the outcropping. I expected him to hobble out the other side and wave at us. Seconds later, a crow flew out from behind the outcropping. The crow flew over us and down the valley. Our eyes widened, and we sat speechless. I started the truck and drove off. When we pulled onto the road, I said, "I didn't know they could become crows." Interesting Experience by Mothmano Amano. Last week, I visited Monument Valley with some family. We took a vehicle tour of the area, guided by an older Navajo man. When we mentioned to him where we planned to camp that night, he told us that the area was known for skinwalkers. He talked a little about skinwalkers, but I didn't ask too much as I didn't want to be disrespectful, knowing they're not really supposed to talk about them. One thing he mentioned is that skinwalkers will cause nightmares or visit you in your nightmares. That night we set up our camper in a beautiful spot north of Monument Valley. At some point in the night I had an experience that didn't feel like a dream, but more like a vision. I saw the image of a cat or cat-like creature walking towards me, then slowly standing up on two legs, beginning to shimmer, and then glitch as it became darker and more human-like. It wasn't doing anything menacing, but it felt very threatening. I woke up, but it felt like I had already been awake. I'm a very skeptical person, and I'm not fearful of skinwalkers or other paranormal phenomena, so I don't think it was an anxious, intruding thought, but definitely found it interesting and wanted to share and see if anyone else has ever had a similar experience. My Strange Encounter One Night by Useful Gain 9910. During my time at school, a few precarious circumstances landed me with no car. Because of this, I was forced to move to an apartment that would have put me within striking distance of my campus. Being that it was about a 2-mile journey, with my city's relatively small downtown falling in between my complex and school, I found it most rational to purchase an electric scooter as my primary form of transportation. My city ran alongside a river, and my apartment happened to border it. This gave me a nice view, but more importantly, it gave me direct access to the greenway that allowed me to circumvent all traffic on my scooter. It was a straight shot from one end of the city, my campus, to the other, where I lived. The greenway did have one flaw that regularly proved to be detrimental. There was almost no light for about a quarter of a mile in the section behind my apartment, and where I got on. My scooter was nice, but the headlight was abysmal. I resolved to cease using it entirely, instead relying on my eyes to be able to discern movement on the path ahead. During my year-long stay at Riverside, I could count on one hand the number of people I saw on the path after dark. Guess I was the only one crazy enough to be out there so late, so regularly. I drove past a naked homeless person tweaking about a mile from my house, calling the cops upon my arrival back home. I drove past one man whose chilling gaze could be felt even in pitch black. He must have not been too happy to see an electric vehicle with no lights at such an hour, which I couldn't blame him for. Of the encounters I had on that path, there is only one that still haunts me. One I couldn't tell my friends or family because I was sure no one would believe me. Like any other of my evening commutes, I made it to the gate in the back of my complex that led up to my home. I was confident in the dark, and I didn't fright easily, But as I unlatched the gate, I felt the sensation I had when that man was staring me down. I was being watched. Looking down the path to the section that lay ahead about 20 yards or so, under a flickering orange street lamp that signified the end of the greenway, was a strange large wolf staring at me. It was as if it had been taxidermied. I couldn't see it breathing or blinking, just staring. Its eyes were almost human. Despite the distance, I could easily discern its iris. Small and beady, I felt frozen and a morbid sense of dread overwhelmed me. I didn't dare get any closer, nor did it. We were locked within a mutual trance, and the entire time it was completely still. I wasn't sure how long I had been standing there, but I didn't take my eyes off it. I felt like that's what it wanted. I knew my gaze was the only thing holding it in place. The river flowing and the sound of cars passing by on a nearby highway felt deafening. Further down the path in the foliage adjacent, past whatever that thing was, there was the crackle of twigs being broken under the pressure of what was likely a bunny or groundhog. Before the sound even finished reverberating, the thing had snapped its head to the direction of its source like an owl. Electrical pulses were surging through my body, and I could feel every nerve screaming at me to immediately break for my apartment. However, I was so paralyzed with fear that I kept my gaze upon the creature. Knowing where it was the only thing providing me a sense of comfort. Then, after it had seemingly ascertained the location of the animal, it leapt on its hind legs and darted into the woods. Like a bolt of lightning it was gone, and it took a few seconds for the rest of my body to catch up to what my eyes just saw. Finally, realizing that the thing was fixated on something besides me, I immediately swung open the gate and carried my scooter up the mulchy hill onto the parking lot. In one motion I turned it on, placed it down, and started riding to the side of the complex my apartment was in. I was on autopilot, focusing on perfectly executing whatever actions would lead to the security of my covers. Before I knew it, I was in my room. When I finally sat down on my bed, I felt like I needed to cry. I couldn't understand what had just happened, but with a million thoughts racing through my head, I was just happy the encounter was over. For the rest of my time at Riverside, I decided dealing with the extra traffic going through downtown provided was worth being in the safety of light. I could handle racing past crackheads and junkies, but I never wanted to see that thing again. I hadn't had another similar incident, and when I finally got another car after I graduated, I began to feel safe commuting again. However, I still live in the city. Noises at night make me feel uneasy now, and one time I could swear there was something tapping on my bedroom window. I don't think I'm ever going to be the same, and the confidence I had to take care of myself in the dark has all but vanished. There are things out there that aren't what they seem, things beyond our comprehension and understanding. Don't try to be brave. Don't try to be a hero. Trust me, it's not worth it. A Dog That's Not Quite Right by Comfortable Thai 9893. This happened a while back when my sister was driving me to my place. We both live in small towns surrounded by rural areas. We make this trip about once a month to see one another. We were just casually talking when there was a very sudden, eerie shift in the air. Neither of us said it out loud, though she told me later that she left it too. We have to slow down to cross a small bridge, the only way from one side of this tiny town to the other. And to our right we spot a dog that's not quite right. It's skinny, not like it's underfed, but like its limbs are a little too long. It did not pant, it did not run, it did not react to our car at all. It just stood, head lowered slightly as it watched us pass. It moved slowly, like a predator stalking its prey. In that moment it felt as though it had been waiting, knowing that anyone in town had to funnel past this point.